All right, so if you average out all of the polls, what do you get?
Well, what I've done, Barry, is I've averaged and weighted all the polls that are available, all the published polls, and that's Newspoll, Nielsen, Essential, Galaxy, and the phone polls from Morgan. And what I've found is that the primary vote of the ALP is at 33, the Coalition's primary vote is at 46, the Greens are sitting on 11, and that translates to a two-party preferred vote of 54 to 46 in favour of the Coalition over the ALP, which is about a 4% swing against the government.
All right, now what has been the story then since the last election?
Well, since the last election, there's been three phases in the polling. From the election to the end of 2010, not a lot happened. It was basically the status quo. Then in February 2011, when the government made the announcement that it was going to price carbon, the ALP vote slid dramatically and the Coalition vote increased dramatically. And that continued right up until the middle of the year, when in July the government actually made its carbon price policy announcement. And then since that time, the gap between the two parties has narrowed from the 16 points that it was in the middle of the year to the 8 points that it currently is now.
And then when you look at the better Prime Minister, did you get the same picture there?
Yes, you do. Up until February 2011, Julia Gillard led Tony Abbott by a substantial margin as the better Prime Minister. But after the announcement that they were going to price carbon, her numbers slid and Tony Abbott's numbers increased, and that continued right up until the middle of the year when the government actually made its policy announcement. And then there was sort of a bit of a tussle between the two of them to see who would become dominant. And at the end of the year, Julia Gillard sort of broke free, and she currently holds a small lead over Tony Abbott.
So drawing on all that information then, how desperate is the situation for the government? What is the size of the task ahead?
Well, I think something that people need to realise is that governments have been in poorer positions than this government much closer to the election, and yet they've still won. And that's happened 3 out of the last 7 elections. So it's not uncommon. Currently the government sits on a 46% two-party preferred vote. What they need to do in the next 18 months is pick up at least another 3%. That should get them over 49. If they can achieve that in the election, then they will be very competitive, because no government that's achieved more than 49% of the two-party preferred vote has ever lost an election. There have been 12 close elections. By that I mean the government and the opposition have each achieved between 49% and 51% of the two-party preferred vote, and the government of the day won all 12 of those.
And you're able to say to what extent the leadership speculation, the destabilisation, has impacted on the government?
Well, the leadership turmoil is not helping Julia Gillard at all. I mean, it must be very difficult to try to run a minority government and then have all this destabilisation coming from within your own party. I mean, when you consider all the interference that Julia Gillard has had to contend with, she would need to be black caviar to overcome it all and still win. And she's not black caviar, she's not in that class. But then nor is anybody else in that parliament on either side.